Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy Friday. It's great to see all of you with us today. We really appreciate you taking the time to be with us. Welcome to this week's Fireside Chat. I'm Lisa Stearns. I'm here with Dr. Tim Cross, our Senior Vice President, and we will be updating you today on the latest information regarding COVID-19 cases within the university and the Institute. And of course, we'll be sharing an update on some other news within the Institute. So, as reminders, always keep your audio muted. Use the chat function on Zoom. If you wish to ask a question of Dr. Cross, you can either post it publicly or you can send it to me privately. A recording of this session is always made. It's posted to the UTIA coronavirus website, and you can find the link on our homepage at utia.tennessee.edu. So, Tim, we always like to take the opportunity to look at how things are going from a case count. What is the current situation for the University of Tennessee?
Thanks for kicking us off once again, Lisa, and definitely want to give a quick overview as to where we are. I am going to note, though, that following our discussion with Coach Fulmer, we had a positive outing last week on the football field. So I'm going to, take some credit for the Institute supporting the team and leading that group to victory. Let's hope they have the same luck this week. The bad news is, though, I don't have anybody nearly as fun and engaging as Coach Fulmer with me this week, so you're stuck with me, but look forward to chatting just a little bit here this afternoon. And honestly, we'll probably have a fairly brief chat unless you have some questions, because not a lot new in the world of COVID-19, at least within the Institute of Agriculture. So with that said, let me see if I can pull up our summary data, and we'll start there and then work through our proposed agenda here today. So this is the same chart and basically the same data we've been talking about for the past several weeks, and try to give you a feel for how this looks today. If you're like me, you can only see a part of the screen, and unfortunately the most important part may be hidden by the participant box. But if you click the little box on the very left-hand side top of that participant box, you can minimize that. All right, so this week, in terms of active positive cases at the University of Tennessee, including the Institute of Agriculture, we have 3 active cases among employees, which is exactly the same number as last week. Not necessarily the same people, but the same total number of active cases. And we have 59 students that are currently active positive cases. So it's a really nice trend from September 11th through October 9th, showing a steady decrease, and that's certainly a positive picture for us within the university. And if you look at isolations that are taking place across the entire institute and the entire campus, similar story there. Since September 11th, we've seen some dramatic decreases, and we're down to currently 35 employees across the whole university that are in isolation, and 241 students that are in isolation. And compare that to September 11th, when we had double that number of employees in isolation and almost 8 times as many students in isolation. So things are really progressing nicely within the university as a whole, and that's, again, very positive news. If you look at the Institute of Agriculture, it's really the same story, just with smaller numbers, which is good. Currently, across the whole Institute of Agriculture, we have 1 active positive case of COVID-19. So we can only do a little bit better than that, and that would be 0. And that's certainly the number we'd love to have, but really good to see that number all the way down to only 1 positive case. So thank you for the work you're doing. It's certainly making a difference. And much similar story, although really more of a story of status quo in terms of isolations. We currently have 9 employees within the Institute that are in isolation, and virtually all of those are due to a direct contact with a family member who has tested positive or exhibited symptoms. So a very small number and a very steady number there, with 9 to 10 being the typical for the past 4 weeks. So within the university and within the institute, we're doing a really good job of keeping a handle on COVID-19, keeping a handle on how many folks are required to be in isolation because of COVID-19. And I think that, again, reflects very positively on each of you and what you're doing during this pandemic. Unfortunately, when we start then to look at the national scene, we see a bit of a different story. And again, you probably heard in the news this week that cases are continuing to rise compared to mid-September, when we've seen a drastic decrease across the university. Nationally, we're actually seeing a steady and significant increase in the number of positive cases. Where we had been averaging approximately 40,000 cases a week, we're now unfortunately hitting 50,000 cases per week again. And that's more like what we experienced back in the July-August time period. That's certainly not what we want to see. Keep my fingers crossed that what that is reflecting is just a little blip rather than a continued steady positive trend. But it's really been going on in an increasing manner for about 4 weeks. So that doesn't bode well for the country in terms of the number of active positive cases. And if we bring that back to Tennessee, while the trend line here is showing a downward trend, if you look at the number of cases for the past 3 days, we have also been seeing a spike in active positive cases or new cases in the state. And we're unfortunately back up to that 2,000 case per day level for the past several days. So what that is probably going to do is make this trend line take a pretty severe bend back up. This is a 7-day average type trend here. If those numbers continue, we're going to see that increase be reflected at the state level as well. And that puts us back at the levels that we were once again in the July-August time period. We had been doing really well with continued downward trajectory since about mid-September, but we're certainly seeing some changes now. And much of that increase we're actually seeing in the more rural areas of the state. And it could be that that's associated with schools opening, that's associated with more gatherings, less restrictions. Not really sure, exactly the cause there for our state nor for the country, but that's what we're seeing at this time anyway. So that is really where we're at in terms of the data that I've tried to share consistently every week. Those may not be the exact best numbers, and they may have a bit of error to them as well, but I've showed you the same data or reported the same data every week so that we really could get a sense of where we're headed based on those trends. For anyone to say they have the exact number of cases in a university, in a state, in a country, that's probably not even possible. But if we're using the same data source week after week after week, I think it's bound to show us really pretty accurate trends. So that's why I've chosen to approach it that way. So I'm going to wrap up our data discussion right there, Lisa, and we're ready probably to move on.
Well, there is a question that is related to this. I'm going to go ahead and ask that now, and that is, come January and the start of the new semester, do we expect that all faculty and staff will be back to campus, or are we needing to wait on an effective vaccine?
I think we actually, the deans and I talked about that this week. Haven't talked about it with our broader groups at this point, but I'm not certain what January 1 will hold, but I am pretty sure between now and then we're going to continue just as we are right now. I don't foresee any significant additional scaling up, if you will. and I don't expect January 1 to be proclaimed a all hands back on deck date either. But it's several months down the road, so we'll continue to track things. We'll do our very best to keep you informed, let you know in advance. We won't want to surprise anyone. Recognize for those on campus, the semester doesn't even start until January 20th this next spring. So, you know, we think about the first of the year being the new school year. It's actually, you know, still 3 weeks away from the start of the school year for our campus anyway. So we've got a little bit of time to adjust even after the holidays and determine if changes are warranted. In the meantime, we're still operating with the goal of having all of our offices open and accessible, with our staff rotating or taking turns, so that we don't have everyone back simultaneously. But we do expect if individuals need help from our extension offices, if they need access to our research facilities, if there are students needing help with their curriculum, if it's animal owners needing care for their animals, all those services are available. It may be through a slightly different approach or process, but our offices are open, and we're hard at work just as we have been since last March.
Well, that's a great lead into my next question, which is obviously COVID has taken so much of our time and attention, as it should, but we also know that the work does not stop. So can you share some of the latest happenings within the Institute?
Yeah, I've got a couple of just quick updates, and you know, these are really things happening as we speak. So not in any way meant to be comprehensive, but what was on my mind this week and what I thought I might share with the group. So let me pull back up my slides for just a moment and start with our most recent capital project, at least here on campus. And that is construction of the Teaching and Learning Center at our University of Tennessee Veterinary Medical Center. And construction really got started this week on this $10 million renovation project. What this project is going to do, it's going to add classroom and workspace to the front of the vet school as we're looking at it there, which will enable our students to have more opportunities to learn their skills in simulations or using simulations. It'll also feature a really nice entrance and ability to access the Pendergrass Library and much more elegant, I think, way for students to interact and utilize that library. So the whole parking area, unfortunately, in the front of the College of Veterinary Medicine is now shut down. It's all been fenced off, and they're in the process of removing vegetation and removing the concrete that's there as the first steps in constructing this new building. So there's a shot down the road of just some of the work that started this week. So it's really good to see this progress, to see the work getting started. And you combine that with the work that's starting to wrap up on our surge building, hopefully followed very shortly by the start of the construction on the new science building right across the street from this site. And we'll have a lot of things going on campus for the first time in quite a long while in terms of major construction projects. Those that are down in food science and animal science might say it wasn't too long ago that we did a complete renovation of their building, and I certainly remember that. But in terms of a new building, these are some of the first new construction projects we've had in 20 years or more. So great to see them kicking off, and excited about what that will hold for our campus in the years ahead. And then one other point, I thought just do a couple of reminders, as I did last week. A reminder to get your flu vaccination. If you haven't already, there's still time. You don't have to panic, but just keep that in mind. We want to keep everyone healthy and make sure we're not masking the effects of coronavirus with the effects of flu. So get your flu vaccine, and then remember to go to the employee self-service and record your vaccination, or indicate that you have opted out because of one of the two reasons that we've offered there in Iris. Doug Bonner tells me we've already had a good number of employees report, and that's great. So keep it up, and don't forget about your flu vaccine. And then another reminder, and this is related also to our health benefits, but all of our benefits. Remember that October 16th, which is a week from today, is the deadline to complete your benefits enrollment for 2021. If you want to make any changes, you've got from now until next Friday to make those changes. For the most part, there were not major changes in our health, dental, vision, and so forth in terms of those programs this year. But remember that some programs do have to be enrolled in annually, like the child care programs and so forth. So if you haven't done that yet, here's a reminder, get it done before next Friday. So just a few sort of highlights and updates from campus, and that hopefully keeps everybody informed. So I'm going to pause right there and see what additional questions then we might have, Lisa.
Well, this is a pretty quiet group today, so we really have had no other questions. So any final remarks you'd like to make?
Well, I might just go around and ask some questions myself of some of those on the call today, because it is good to see everyone, but I won't do that. I won't put anyone on the spot. And, you know, I guess for me, it's a very good thing that we don't have a whole lot to talk about. There aren't a lot of new restrictions. There aren't a lot of new rules. There aren't a lot of new procedures to have to worry about. And that's a good thing. But let's make sure we're aware of what's happening around us. While the university and the institute are doing quite good, clearly other parts of our society are not doing so well in terms of cases. And make sure we continue to do those things that we've been really focused on since the 1st of March. This does mark about the halfway point in the semester for those of you associated with teaching and campus, and our student numbers are low and decreasing, so that's good, and all of that seems to indicate there has not been campus-wide transmission of coronavirus. Let's make sure we don't see that happening in our off-campus events either, and to this point I certainly have seen no evidence of that, but let's be extra careful given that the number of cases appear to be increasing. So be careful out there. Remember to wear your masks. Remember to social distance. Continue to stay home if you're not feeling well. Those things have served us really well up to this point, and we just want to stick with it and continue to keep our numbers low and decreasing. Let's get down to 0 positive cases and 0 isolations, and keep serving everyone that we're serving. I think that'd be a great thing if we can reach that, and I'm confident that we can. So with that, as usual, I want to say I hope you each have a great weekend. Looks like it could be a little soggy, but you know, sometimes a weekend without a lot of yard work and chores might be nice. So take a little time to do some reading, catch up on your sleep, whatever really helps you to relax, rejuvenate, refresh, and be ready for a big week next week. So I'll close right there and say thanks again, Lisa.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend.